So before we get started, we would like to respectfully acknowledge the territory in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, and the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We would also like to recognize the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nunatukavut, and the Innu of Nitassinan and their ancestors as the original people of Labrador. We strive for respectful relationships with all these people of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation. And honor this beautiful land together. So just for your information, we don't want to take too much of your time, and we plan to end our session at around 7:45 p.m., hopefully. As part of our agenda, I will first provide you a brief background and overview of our project. I will explain why we are having this information session. Then we will have two presentations, and each one will be up to 10 minutes long. The first presenter will be Dr. Jennifer Selby, Associate Professor of Religious Studies at Memorial University. As most of you may already know, Dr. Selby is a great friend and ally of our Muslim community. She led many initiatives, including the Addressing Islamophobia in MNL community partnership. And this evening, she is joining us as the team lead of the Muslim Narratives and Lives in Newfoundland and Labrador project. Our second and last presenter is Dr. Colleen Quigley. She is the head of the Archives and Special Collections at Memorial University Library. And I can't emphasize enough how lucky we are to have her on board with and share this journey with us. I hope that after her presentation, you will all start considering donating your personal archival materials to MAN Library. And at the end of the session, we will have a 10 to 15 minutes long Q&A period, question and answer period. So if you have any questions, please kindly wait until we finish the presentations. And then you will have the option to ask your questions verbally. And at that time, you can unmute yourself. Or you can type your question in the chat box, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. So by clicking that chat box icon, you can open that chat box and start typing your questions anytime. And at the end, we will try to read and answer as many of these chat box questions. Before we proceed, I also would like to give you a little background about why and how we as MNL got involved in this project. Well, as some of you may already know, the history of Muslims in Canada dates back to pre-Confederation era. So we have been around for a very, very long time. It started in 1854 when James and Agnes Love, a young Scottish couple, moved to Ontario after embracing Islam in Scotland. Since then, Muslims have been an integral part of Canadian mosaic, making great contributions to its prosperity. However, despite our long history and rich heritage, we Muslims are often perceived as newcomer, racialized, religious minority. And this is partly due to the lack of archival information and research about our past and about our present. But in 2007, something major happened. Maybe again, some of you may remember, the Canadian Parliament then proclaimed October as the Islamic History Month in Canada. And this prompted many Canadian cities from one coast to another to start acknowledging and celebrating the heritage of their Muslim residents. And last year, MNL made a formal request to the City Council and succeeded in getting a similar proclamation here in St. John's. And since then, we are happy that October is celebrated as the Islamic History and Heritage Month in St. John's. And this is something that we project to be part of so many aspects of the social life, education life here in St. John's. We hope to make this part of the curriculum, for instance, so that when October comes, the students at their schools will get to know that this is the Islamic History and Heritage Month in St. John's. In this slide, you see the proclamation document signed by Mayor Denny Breen in 2019, last year. And you also see a picture, a snapshot of the proclamation ceremony at the City Hall. And you see Dr. Said Pirzada offering his thank you address to the City Council. After this milestone, MNL organized a few community events to inform the larger public about this achievement. For instance, we had a very successful library event at AC Hunter Children's Library. We also hosted the mayor and city councilors at our mosque and presented them about our history, the Canadian Muslims and Newfoundland Muslims. In the meantime, we also started reflecting on what can we do to best document, the Muslims, the history of Muslims in Newfoundland. And it was around that time that the foundations of the MNL in NL project were laid down. And we are very deeply thankful to Dr. Jennifer Selby for developing and leading this timely and important project. So you may wonder what this project is all about. So I will spend a couple of minutes giving you an overview, brief overview of the project. Well, first of all, I need to mention that this is a community partnership project, and it was developed in consultation with a number of university and community stakeholders. And these include MNL, our Muslim Association, the MUN Library Archives and Special Collections, and also University of Toronto's Muslims in Canada project team. Because our project is going in parallel with a national scale project called Muslims in Canada Archive Project. And we hope to be part of that hub national project at the end of the year. Secondly, the funding for our project was granted by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, and we are grateful for that funding support. And now I would like to speak about what we are trying to achieve through this project. First of all, we aim to find, develop, and collect archival materials about Newfoundland Muslims. Okay, and we would like to go as far as 1925. You may wonder why this is 1925, because this is the year when Memorial University was opened, and this is a milestone in our history as well. And our project work will involve three major areas, working on three major areas. The first one is the scanning of existing archives. We know that there are a number of newspapers, and there are also Memorial University records which have some archival data about Muslims in Newfoundland. So we are trying to scan all these data and find the traces of earlier Muslims. Secondly, we also try to produce oral histories through video interviews. And in that context, we plan to interview 10 senior pioneer members of our Muslim community. And we already booked a studio at Memorial Campus to conduct these interviews. For those of you who may not be able to join in person, we also have the option of giving these interviews online, like this Zoom meeting. And the third, and presumably the most important component of the project, is about the collection of archival material donations. We will seek archival donations from all self-identifying Muslims like yourselves, and also organizations like MNL, the MSA, and many others. And eventually, all this information and materials that we will find, collect, and develop will ultimately form what we call the Muslims in NL archive. And it will be hosted at MUN Library here locally. And this archive will be a publicly accessible source of information to those who want to know about Newfoundland Muslims. It will also be our collective gift as a Muslim community to future generations of Muslims and scholars. At least in the future, scholars will not have the excuse of saying, we couldn't find enough data about Muslims. So this is our version of their history, okay? So we are having this information session for a number of reasons. First of all, we would like to brief you about the MNL in NL project. And I believe I have done most of this briefing so far, but Dr. Selby and Dr. Quigley are more than welcome to fill the gaps if there are any. But more importantly, we are having this information session to inform you about the archival component of our project. And this will be done by Dr. Selby's and Dr. Quigley's presentations. They will help us to understand the importance of thinking archivally, because this is a new concept and something that we didn't take granted for so many years when we were going through our personal items, when we were, going through our children's, school, projects, our pictures, our videos, and so on. So they will try to emphasize the importance of thinking archivally, explain what and how you can donate to Muslims MNL archive, and finally introduce you to MAN library archives and special collections as a space, as a new home for your potential archival donations. So I would like to give the floor now to Dr. Jennifer Selby, our project lead, for her presentation. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box or raise them verbally at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. And as you know, Aisha is a wonderful colleague, collaborator, and friend. So thank you for all of the work you're doing on the project. It's been a real pleasure. So welcome, everyone. I'm really excited that we're at this point of the project. Aisha and I and several of you on this call have been thinking and talking about this for several months, even a year now. So it's really exciting that we're at this moment to think about what are archives. So as you know, I am a anthropologist, sociologist. I'm not a historian or an archivist. So I've really enjoyed, thanks to Colleen and thanks to some of the research I've been doing related to this project, learning more about archives and how important they are. So what are archives? This is an important starting point. As we detail here, archives can describe all of the records of an individual, a business, a government, or an organization. These records are our primary source evidence of the past. So it's really like, to me, it's really wonderful and fascinating. If you think about historical records, how do we know what took place at the beginnings of Memorial in 1925? Well, we know some of those things because of oral history and because of newspaper reporting and so on, but a lot of that kind of historical record is pieced together through archives. So even what we know about history is often probably dug up by someone doing research using archival materials. So it's really, archives are just really important to piece together the past and the present. So what does it mean to think archivally? Thinking archivally, and here I'll ask Dr. Quigley to round out what I have to say, but it means to think about how important it can be to share and donate your materials. So, and thinking about which ones are more important and so on. So we're really fortunate Dr. Quigley is with us to give us that information. Why is it important? Well, from a scholarly perspective, it's kind of the perspective I can bring tonight. I recently put together an edited volume that hopefully will be out next year. And when I surveyed in that book all of the historical record about what we know about Muslims in Canada, it's really striking that actually we know so little historically. A lot of the archival records that do exist in Canada are related to the Al Rashid Mosque in Edmonton, which is known as Canada's first official mosque. And the Al Rashid is actually one of the few places that does have some archival materials related to the creation of that mosque in 1938. But many scholars suspect, so one scholar, Afua Cooper at Dalhousie University, she suspects that actually Muslims came to Canada far before the 1800s, when it's suspected that many Lebanese started coming to Alberta, that there may have been and likely were Black Muslims who may have been part of the Atlantic slave trade, who had come through Newfoundland and Labrador, hundreds of years ago, and we just don't know those stories. So for our project right now, we're at the beginning stages. So as Dr. Kinturk mentioned, we're focusing on the post-1925 stage. But to me, this is just reveals how important it is to think about what we have now and what that could even mean in 60 years. Or 100 years, well beyond our lifetime, the kinds of materials that we can share and the ways they can shape future knowledge about our time now and about the past. So there are many ways you can get involved. We're really fortunate. We have some funding from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council to help fund our students who are helping us with this work. But you can get involved by thinking about what materials you may have and thinking about donating them to the archive. I'm going to say a few words now in the next slide about the procedures that we've been thinking about how to receive your materials if you decide you have some items you'd like to donate. And of course, with the caveat that in the pandemic context in which we're in now, it's a little bit more, we're playing it kind of by ear, but we're fortunate again to be working with archives and special collections who are experts in the preservation and archiving of materials. So this is how we've outlined the donation process. And we'll be sharing with you at the end of this talk our website, so you can go back and either watch this again or look at a graphic that we're going to have on the website that will outline all of this information. So you don't have to worry about writing it down right now. You'll be able to have access to this again. But I just wanted to explain the different steps, just so you can imagine where that special photo of you and your children, or of you and your grandparents, or whomever, what will happen with it. So one of the first things is you need to contact me by phone or by email, and my contact information you'll see at the end of this call. So just get in touch with me. Don't hesitate at any point to phone or email me as the first step. The second step is, depending on how quickly you want to get rid of that material, I will then issue you a temporary receipt for your materials. So that means that I will catalog, roughly, I guess, what I'm receiving, and I will securely store them at the Memorial University campus in my locked office. Then as soon as possible, as soon as I'm able to coordinate it, I will formally hand over those archives to staff at the Queen Elizabeth II Library's Archives and Special Collections. And then at that point, your material then becomes their responsibility. Which is really wonderful because they have very rigorous protocols and procedures for storage, acquisition, and digitization. So you can rest assured that your materials will be safe. Then with the Archives and Special Collections staff, together you'll co-fill and co-sign a temporary receipt document. That'll be by phone or by email. Because of the pandemic context, you won't be having in-person contact. That will begin the formal acquisition process. And then from there, we'll also get more information about the nature of your material, about how you want them handled, if they're not selected for addition to the archive. So Colleen was giving me an example. If you have a huge trunk full of the Newfoundland Herald from 1952, that's precious to you maybe, but the Archives and Special Collections already has the Newfoundland Herald, for example. And so there may be certain things that might be less useful to the archive than others, but don't hesitate to put things in there because we can determine that with you. It's also possible, if you have things that you're donating that are valuable, that Archives and Special Collections can issue you a receipt for income tax purposes. So that's something we can take up on a kind of a case-by-case basis if you're, I don't know, donating a piece of art or anyway, something like that. And then if your materials are found to be acceptable for addition to the archives, the staff will issue a deed of gift. And then you are at that moment, only then, formally transferring ownership of your materials to the Archives and Special Collections. So one of the wonderful things about this donation process is that you're not really saying goodbye to your pieces of your articles, your materials. You're just kind of saying, see you later. Because you will have, this is a publicly accessible repository. It's open to all researchers. And you can determine in conjunction with the staff if there are any restrictions you'd like to place on access to the materials you donate. So that's an important part. So all of this is done on a kind of, so that you feel completely comfortable. You'll be able to access your materials in person by appointment, or digitally when they're available in consultation with the Archives and Special Collections staff. And also, as donors to the archives, we'll always make you aware of any events, any activities or knowledge production that occurs in relation to the whole project. So we have some ideas. Aisha and I have some ideas about how we can share some of these stories, and we're developing those now. It really depends on what you receive as well, so we have to kind of play that by ear. But one of the exciting pieces, I think, for us here on the island of Newfoundland and Labrador is the way in which we can participate in a national project. So your articles will always live here in St. John's in Newfoundland. They're not going anywhere, but the goal of the larger project is to create a Muslims in Canada archive. So we'll be kind of related to this larger project, which is really exciting, I think, for us here in the province. All right, so here's the information about our website, and it's just nlmuslimlives.ca and my email address. If you look me up, you can find my phone number, my office number. Definitely email is the easiest way to get a hold of me, kind of all hours of the day. But if you want to phone me, if you feel more comfortable, my number is 864-4046. And here's Dr. Kinturk's number, email as well, if you want to get in touch with her. She's a great resource as well. All right, so that's the end of my formal presentation. I'm going to now pass the floor to Dr. Quigley.
Thank you so much, Aisha and Jennifer, and thank you guys all so much for taking the time to gather here. And I have to give one correction. I'm not actually a doctor, so we can just loosen that up a little bit. You can just call me Colleen, and I'm just so excited to be part of this project and to be part of your lives, even if just a little bit tangentially or archivally. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Is that what I'm trying to do, Aisha, right now? Share my screen? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
And sharing screen, and there we go. Hopefully this will be very smooth. Oh, it was super smooth. So I just want to echo everything that Aisha and Jennifer said, which is that we are so delighted that the Archives and Special Collections is your repository. We strive at Archives and Special Collections to collect material that is important and significant to the culture and history of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So that is really our goal as an archive. There are many archives on campus at the university. So just remember our name, Archives and Special Collections. And that's going to be hopefully your new home for your materials. So hopefully I can just go to the next screen here. Is it working? Yes. Okay. I just wanted to say that I'm really excited about having the idea of having your material here at Archives and Special Collections, because it really is addressing a really important gap in our holdings. As Jennifer mentioned, the archives is where we come to source a lot of our meaning making around history. And in order for us to make any kind of conclusions about life in the past or in the future, we have to actually have some documents to draw from. So I'm really excited about having the material here in Archives and Special Collections for future study and future scholarship. So that's my main thing that I just wanted to say, is my enthusiasm for having our material. So we've talked a lot about what is an archive in theory, and I really loved Aisha's description as the material that you're giving us is actually a collective gift. So you're probably wondering some practical questions. What do you mean by gift? What exactly is archival? So basically, when I talk about archival material, I'm looking for things that you have created or you have collected. So that might be recordings of social events, of really important public lectures or public addresses that have happened. Maybe you've done some interviews yourself with family members. Those are the types of things that I'm interested in. Maybe performances of dance, of song, of those sorts of things. And where are they located? Probably on a variety of different formats. You might have some photographs, you might have some VHS tapes, you might have some cassette tapes. You probably have a whole array of things that these recordings might be on. So those are the types of things I'm looking for. Or you may have also compiled these items and created your own photo album. You might have some scrapbooks that have photographs in combination with some stories written out, in addition to some newspaper clippings. Those are things that I would consider archival. Some people also keep diaries or journals or business ledgers. Those types of objects are what I would consider archival. Perhaps you're a creator, an artist, things like poetry, maybe some song lyrics. Those types of things are what I would consider archival. So that's kind of giving you a sense, hopefully, of the types of things you might have in your trunk, in a drawer, under a bed, tucked away somewhere safe, hopefully. And how can we make this donation of archival processes as easy and straightforward as possible? Well, I will give you a hint. If you like to make lists, do you like to write things down, have it all organized in terms of numbers and details? Well, you are an archivist's friend. That is really what we really look for when it comes to gathering your material. So you've gathered it all together. And if you can identify, give me as many details as possible relating to this material, this is going to give me a better idea of how long it might take us to organize it, how much space we need to make sure that we have available. So as much information as you possibly can. And we can talk about, and I will walk you through this process. I do not expect you to memorize everything on these slides or to memorize this presentation. You can always email Dr. Jennifer and she will be in contact, and I will make sure to answer all of your questions. But a general rule to go by is if you are trying to give me a list relating to textual material, so something like you've got a lot of diaries or scrapbooks or business records, then measure that by the volume of boxes. So I've got 5 boxes, 2 boxes, a half of a banker's box. Give me the sense of volume in the number of boxes when we're talking about textual material. Now, if we're talking about things like photographs, reel-to-reels, DVDs, laser discs, 8 tracks, who knows what you have lying around. That would be great if you could give me the count number by the each. So you're going to actually count up. I know this is going to sound like a little bit of a bit tedious, but if you have a photo album, if you could let me know, I have a photo album, there are 100 photographs in each album, and I have 5 albums, then I have a sense of how many photographs you have versus how many slides versus how many reels versus how many DVDs. So when it comes to anything that is photographic or audiovisual, if you could give me numbers, that would be great. So I also need to get a sense of not just what it is and how much it is, but what kind of condition would you say this is? Because we need to prepare the archive when this material comes in to make sure we put it in the right place. If you think that your material may be at risk to, say, a pest infestation or mold, let us know as soon as you can. And this is not a judgment thing. This is so that we can make sure that we put it in a safe place and that infestation does not accidentally reach out to our other precious holdings. So if you think that there might possibly be mold, maybe it's been down in a basement that's had its fair share of water breaks and whatnot, just give us a heads up. If you think there might be some sort of damage, even if you suspect it, rather be safe than sorry. So condition is a really, really big one, and volume. So those are kinds of the sense of what I need. And I gave you an example of the types of information that I would love to have when it comes to things like photographs. What really makes an impact and meaning with photographs is having as much information identified as possible, because really it is the people in the photographs, the location, the event that it took place at, as well as who took the photograph, that is really, really important for us to understand the context. Perhaps a researcher is very interested in one particular person and they're looking for images of that particular person. Then we could actually put our hands on it very quickly for them if we have that person identified. So, and really, you're going to know much more about your own photographs and your own material than I ever would. It would take me years and access to information I do not have, which is your brain, to identify who are these people, who took this photograph, when did it get taken, why did it get taken, and that can inform us on the context of the story, as well as some really practical things like what are the rights and ownership, copyright, and that sort of thing. So that's a kind of a very, very overarching sense of what I'm interested in from you and how we can hopefully streamline this process to make it as easy as possible. And you're probably wondering, well, why would I give it to an archive is it just because I want people to know about my story? If that's the case, that is one huge part of your story is passing that on, letting other people hear it, interpret it, and understand that it's important and it existed. But also, we will keep your story and your material safe. So I've just given a couple of photographs here, and also times of COVID are kind of putting everything a little bit for a loop. Usually what I do with donors or potential donors is I walk you through our facilities, walk you through our storage space, our reading room space, our office space, and you get to actually meet the people who are going to work with your material, and hopefully even meet some of the students that we employ in the archive who help us rehouse material into acid-free boxes, which you see on the left-hand side. You see a beautiful, I guess I see it's beautiful. I don't know if everyone else seems to see the same beauty in boxes on a shelf as I do, but look how clean that is. All those acid-free NutriCore boxes. We also, it's a secure room. We've got swipe proxy cards in order to get in and out. This is not an open stacks. No, not anybody can just wander in and out of this room. And as you can see with the middle photograph, that we also have environmental controls around this storage sites, such as humidity and HVAC systems. So to make sure that all of the temperature controls and the humidity maintains nice and stable, and that there's no light. We also monitor all of the light issues as well. So the physical space maintains a nice, stable environment, unlike your basement or your attic, which probably is going to have fluctuating temperatures. But instead, when it comes here, it remains consistent and safe. And you'll see that beautiful red tank. Isn't that gorgeous? That's a fire suppression system. So again, I guess archives in the eye of the beholder. It's all it's all relative, isn't it? But that fire suppression system is the worst possible thing that could happen to your material is a fire. Because if a fire happens, paper is. It really is, it makes good fuel for a fire, but that won't happen in our archives and special collections because our fire suppression system is made so that it's not water that gets pushed out through our sprinkler. It's actually a gas or a foam. It's a chemical that comes out through, so it will actually have a chemical fire. So it will stop the fire as well as minimize any water damage that might happen with that as a result of fire. And our location is, we're located on the 3rd floor of the QE2 library, the Queen Elizabeth II library. So we're not down in a basement with likelihood of floods, etc. And I couldn't resist another picture of some stacks and boxes. These are the things that make my heart sing. But I don't have a picture of our reading room, which is a bit different these times of COVID. But again, our reading room is usually filled with a nice array of researchers, from faculty members who are working on course development to artists and local historians and journalists, as well as students doing all kinds of work. So that's the types of people that we hope will be researching your material, as well as you also have access to your own material. So that just segues to I think this is my last slide, which is I'm not gonna go into great detail on these points because Jennifer did a fabulous job earlier, which is that our agreement, our deed of gift, our gift agreement between you and between Archives and Special Collections is something that we'll work on by individually. So we'll make sure that it works for you as it it works for us in Archives and Special Collections, and we'll have an agreement that we keep your material safe, as well as provide access to your material, both physically for physical researchers, as well as using our online portal. And again, I just want to echo what I started this monologue. I'm trying to talk slowly, and I've gotten faster and faster as this 5 to 10 minutes has proceeded. Okay, I'm going to slow down and just reiterate and echo that your stories, your material is a gift, and it is a gift to the Memorial University. And I can walk you through what that means for it to be issued a tax credit, and really it's just related to the volume of material that you're giving us, and how that material is appraised by a third-party appraiser. So I don't tell you how much the dollar amount is for your material. That's actually, we hire an archival appraiser to do that work. So that again is third party, and that is to thank you for the gift that you are giving to the university for research and for study, and for also understanding who we are as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And if you have any questions, I suggest contacting Dr. Jennifer first, and I will be around to help you and assist you in any way that I can. But I guess I cannot stress enough how excited I am to be part of this project personally, how important I think it is for Archives and Special Collections to have material that reflects the experiences of the people of our province. So again, thank you again, and I'm going to mute myself, and yes, I'm going to mute myself, and I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to pass it back on to Aisha.
Well, thank you so much to both of you, Dr. Selby and Colleen, quickly for these wonderful presentations. I believe you went through pretty much everything, but I'm sure there may be some questions in the minds of our audience. So if anyone has a question to ask, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions verbally. The other option might be, if you wanted to keep it private, you can use the chat box. You can type it there and post it to us. So please, the floor is yours now to our distinguished guests. If you have any questions, please feel free to speak up.
I'm just going to, I meant to formally and publicly thank the QE2 library as well. We're so fortunate. This is a tremendous gift of space and hundreds of hours that they have kind of donated to the project. So it's really exceptional and rare that we've been so fortunate to have such a good working relationship with QE2 Library. So I wanted to just say that. Thanks. You're muted, Aisha.
So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise them. We will be more than happy to answer your questions. So maybe I can go name by name and
sure. Or I can ask a question that I would be curious about. This is for Colleen. Colleen, if I have a lot of material in my attic from, I don't know, that's fairly recent, let's say in the last 10 years, would that be of interest to the project? If it's not, 100 years old, but if it's 5 or 8 years old, would that be of interest?
So great question, Jennifer. And just because material is old or just because it seems new or only a couple of years, that is not the determining factor of why I find it archivally interesting. So it's really a matter of what is that? Is it that you found a flash drive with some photographs that you took relating to, I don't know, let's say there was an event and there was a whole group of families that decided to go on a road trip together from one mosque to another across the country. I am interested in that. So that would be considered contemporary data. But let's say you found, you wanted to give me, I don't know, from 1928, the Evening Telegram. That's old, but I have a lot of copies of the Evening Telegram from 1928 at the Center for Newfoundland Studies. So I'm not interested in that. So old versus not old is not the determining factor. So if you're not sure, ask. That's my general question, because you might be surprised. But basically, is it unique? Is there something that's something that will also be key for me that's interesting? And unique could also be maybe a group of people went to an event and you have the program. So the program isn't unique. But what if you all signed that program? And what if on the other side of that program, you wrote notes about things you liked about the performer? Oh, they had a beautiful voice. Oh, that was horrible. The pronunciation was just atrocious. Can you believe that they did that? Then, aha, I am interested all of a sudden a little bit more in that program because it has annotations and handwritten on it. So if you have anything with handwriting that identifies an important discussion or what could be considered an important debate, that's what I'm interested in. So I really could talk about archives all day. So I apologize if I could give you a whole bunch of scenarios, because you can't really judge a book by the container it comes in. Just last year, I arrived to my office and there was a kitty litter box. I will say I normally I'm not particularly excited about having kitty litter, but when I opened it up, it was all handwritten notes and photographs relating to a very specific event. So I'm often surprised about the treasures I find that may look like they're not treasures at all. So if you're not sure, ask us and I'll be able to hopefully give you a clear answer. Hopefully.
Great.
Hi, this is Ms. Muhammad Nazir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a deadline to all this, or it's open-ended?
So when it comes to the archives, the Archives and Special Collection is here for you for basically the end of time. So there is no time where I'm going to be disinterested in your story. So if in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, you think, hey, I remember that Zoom meeting I had with that really chatty librarian or archivist I just found something I think she might be interested in. So call me anytime, really. Really, there is no deadline, and in archives, our clock works very slow. So I have recently gotten calls. This happened 5 months ago, where I got a phone call from a gentleman who had been talking to my boss in 1999 about his letters and diaries. So 21 years later, we finished that donation process. So time is slow when it comes to our workflows. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. I just spent days and days and shredding old materials, thinking that my children have moved away and I shouldn't leave junk for them. And too bad I didn't know about this.
You can call me. So hopefully it hasn't gone too far, but kind of the first step is trying to identify what you think is important. And I think that's kind of key, is that I can tell you what I think is important, but you have to tell me, this is why I cherish this particular object or this artifact or this photograph. This is why it's so meaningful. And I am sure that I also have to listen to you in terms of what you think is important too.
See, there is another related thing. I was not in the habit of keeping the hard copies. There are some photos, but I do know who has them. So I can give you the names and then you can contact them.
Excellent. Why don't we start that document? And I'm looking at you, Jennifer. If Jennifer can start the keeper of the record of, so it's almost like we've started like an archival mystery, and we've got a few clues. This is very exciting, and we have to follow up and see if they indeed do have the evidence, so to speak. Very exciting. I'm already delighted. Look at this.
Yeah, absolutely. If you know of folks that, are not part of this call or, might not know about the project, you can give me their contact information, or you can let them know about me, whatever you think would be most appropriate. It's true, we have till time perpetuity, like we have a lot of time, but at the same time, this particular project that Aisha is working with me and so on, it is funded for 1 year. So after that 1 year, maybe we could seek out private donors to help us with students, or we could seek out more funding. But it would be helpful for us if you had items to try not to wait 21 years. You can wait that long, but we do and I'll be here to hopefully too for a long time, God willing, and everyone in the project too. But the students, for example, we have helping us, we are able to hire them this year because we have funding for the 1 year.
Yeah. Do you mind, Jennifer, I joined in to provide another detail. Yeah, I'm glad that we have so many familiar and friendly faces, names joining the session. And I know some of them would be interested in joining our interviews at MAN Studio as well. So during these interviews, we will request the people joining us to bring at least one archival material with them. And then during the interview, they will speak about the content of that archival material. For instance, if they bring a photograph, we would expect them to talk about when this photograph was taken, for which occasion, what is the significance of that picture for their personal lived experiences here, and what was the occasion again, and who are in the picture, right? So again, you don't need to pack, all the materials that you are having in your homes immediately, but for the interviews that we scheduled to begin on the week of November 16, would expect those interviewees to bring at least one archival material with them. So as of tonight, you can start identifying that one single precious archival material that you may consider bringing to the interview and potentially donate it to the project.
So this is just, if you're new to this idea of the interviews, this was an idea that Aisha and I had, was that not only are we going to kind of look for donations to the archive, but we also hope to, in our kind of limited resources, create material to add to the archive. And so one way to do that is through oral histories. And so this is why Aisha has contacted some of you already, especially some of our more senior members here in the city and elsewhere, to participate, because these are precious stories that we would really love to include in some way in the archive.
Yeah, I see in the chat box some very nice feedback from a number of participants. So I would like to express my thanks to Zaina, Soraya, for expressing, their appreciation of this project. And also, I believe Auntie Alta Rahman, she wrote that she would like to speak to Colleen. She's one of the most senior members of our community who have done a great deal of contributions to our community. So, like, I really wish you, Colleen, can connect with her, and I can facilitate that connection together with Dr. Selby.
Do you want to speak now, Alta? Are you asking?
I want to speak to Colin for a minute.
Sure.
My husband was working in this month for 42 years in the one place only, but we came in this country in 1964. So my husband has a lot of material, and I really feel bad to throw them. They're very old and very valuable to him. I don't understand that much because I'm not he was an electrical engineering division. He did a lot of research and everything. And I don't know whom I should contact and what thing I should throw, what thing I should keep. And I don't know, I'm completely lost.
Alta, are you here in St. John's?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I think, Aisha, if you could connect us, like, with, is it better for us to maybe have a phone conversation?
Okay.
Sure.
Because I'm going to have a lot of questions for you.
Thank you.
That everybody else in this room does not want to hear me ask you all kinds of questions about what kinds of material, how much material. It's all related to his engineering professor. That's the kinds of questions I'm going to ask you. So Aisha, if you could connect myself and Alta by phone, and I think Aisha, you might have my phone number. If not, I'll make sure you do. And we'll talk on the phone, and maybe Alta, it might be easiest for me if you're talking about a lot of material, like I think you're talking about a room full. That's kind of what I'm hearing from you. It might be easiest if I actually come to you and have a look at the boxes and the desk and the filing cabinet, and I'm just picturing. I think I can see what I can imagine what I might encounter. So Aisha, if that's okay with you, that would be great. Alta, if we can connect in the next. Hopefully in the next week, because I'm heading out for 2 weeks to visit my parents in Nova Scotia. So if we don't connect this week, it might have to be at the end of November. So apologies for that.
Yeah, I will certainly pass Alta Rahman's phone number to you, Colleen, so that you can connect as soon as you wish. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know that we have on board for this session some younger members of our community. And I know at least one of them was born here and spent all her life here. So she's a second generation Newfoundland Muslim. So maybe Soraya, would you like to, if you are still there with us, would you like to speak about, how you would consider your parents or yourself would consider contributing to the project? So maybe she left us. So I will see. Yeah. I'm sorry but she left. But I will make sure that she also connects with you, Colleen, because she has, as I said, her parents lived there most of their life here, and she was born and raised here. She's now raising her third generation family, Newfoundlander family here. Yeah, any other questions or comments from our participants? You are more than welcome. I know we are a bit behind, we've passed the time limit, but we enjoy getting your feedback so much. So I don't think that Jennifer or Colleen would mind spending a couple, 5 or 10 more minutes chatting with you. So if you had a question, please feel free to ask now.
Well, thank you all. It was great and it's a good project. Congratulations.
Thank you. Jennifer, do you think that we shall conclude the session or give a few more minutes for our
So yeah, no, and just everyone know that we're here and happy to discuss at any point. As Colleen mentioned, right, your records are also personalized to you. So if you don't have a general question, we can always speak to you directly.
Okay, would you mind sharing this last page of our presentation where we have provided the contact information about the project, the website, and as well as your contact information and my contact information?
Absolutely.
Okay. So these are the project contacts. You can visit the project website or MNL's own website to re-listen, re-watch this session later on. And then also you can reach out to Dr. Jennifer Selby through her Memorial University email address. And you can also reach her by phone, I believe. And if for some reason you prefer to reach out to me, you are also more than welcome. I will be here and happy to help you to connect you with other collaborators in the project.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's your time is so precious, and we really appreciate your support and for coming tonight.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I wish
Thank
you all
you.
have a great evening.